Hi everyone, my name is Marcus and you're watching the Reef Nerd YouTube channel. Today I'm reviewing the Hmahli Resin Reactor. Hmahli is an Australian-born company straight out of Wollongong. It's run by one man out of his garage and they're making big waves in the reefing community. Just recently they've started exporting their line of products into the USA with these resin reactors where they've partnered with Blue Life Resin. Hmahli also makes a range of custom designed sumps. That's probably what they're most well known for at the moment. You will have seen these sumps posted on Instagram and Facebook, and they are absolute hot rod tricked out sumps that anyone would want. The Hmahli product that I have here is their smaller version of their resin reactor. It's currently the only one available on the market, and it's available exclusively at Reef Galleria in South Melbourne. These resin reactors are different to an ordinary reactor in that they're low flow. They're designed to work with resin-based media rather than your standard GFO or carbon or anything that wants high flow. Perfect for the Blue Life resins. I'm going to be running Blue Life Phosphorus, which is their phosphate removal resin. And I also have here the regeneration media. So what makes these resins unique is that they last a lot longer than traditional media that's consumed like GFO and then you throw it out. The resins, they can hold far more of the either nitrate or phosphate that you're pulling out of the water. And then once they do hit their capacity, they don't leach it back into your tank. And you're able to regenerate the resin using the regeneration media. The regeneration media is very cheap, and then you can use it up to 6 times, maybe more. We'll find out in the long run. But the advantage of that is it's a much lower cost in the long run and much lower maintenance in that it's not a weekly task or a fortnightly task to replace your GFO or anything like that. Depending on the nutrient load of your tank, it could be every few months that you need to regenerate the resin. The reason why you'd want to run the resin in a reactor like this and not just in the bags that it comes in a high flow area of your sump or something like that is because once you put the resin into this reactor, you're able to regenerate it inside the reactor. You simply take the pump and the output of the reactor out of your tank and put them in a bucket, add the regen media and let it run for a couple of hours. Pour the water away, flush it with RO, and then put it back in your system and it's ready to go. And so you can do that every few months as needed. You just test your tank, the phosphate levels or the nitrate levels, depending on which resin you're using. And once you see those levels starting to rise, it probably means it's time to regenerate your media. This reactor comes with a Siche pump. Siche is Italian made. They have an excellent name in pumps. They make pumps, and nothing but pumps. So you know you're getting a really high quality product with this. And it comes pre-installed with John Guest fittings, which is really, really cool to see. It also means that you can use high quality John Guest tubing that comes included with the reactor kit. So the reactor comes with everything you see here, the pump, the tubing, there's a valve, and an Allen key as well to be able to open and close the reactor. The resins are sold separately and are going to be available from a number of local fish stores around Australia, but I believe the reactors are currently only available from Reef Galleria. To open the reactor up, you just use the Allen key to loosen these screws, give it a twist, and you can lift the lid straight off like that. Like most reactors, it has an O-ring seal, and it's important to make sure that the seal and the surface that the seal contacts onto is perfectly clean when you're putting it back together. This reactor has this tube down the middle, and then in the bottom is a distribution plate to cause the flow of the inbound water to go evenly around the whole reactor. This tube screws in the bottom and can be removed as well. So once you've filled it with your resin, simply put the lid back on, line it up with the tube, and give it a twist again. So you can run any of Blue Life's resin-based products in this reactor. And they're all designed to be run outside of the bag, meaning you cut open the bag and pour the resin directly into the reactor. The only exception to that is the Clear FX media, which is designed to be run in the bag and you just stuff the entire bag into the reactor. These reactors are designed to run up to 500 ml of the media. This here is a 250 ml container, so you could run 2 of these, either mixing the resin and the 2 different resins, or 2 of the same resin, or maybe 1 of these and a bag of the Clear FX media. While it is possible to mix the resins, so you could add the phosphate resin and the nitrate resin into the reactor, you might not want to do that because the resins will deplete at different rates depending on the bioload of your tank. So it may be wasteful on your regen media when one of them is depleted and the other one is not. Although that's entirely up to you if that matters to you or not. The regen media is not that expensive, and so if your bioload is quite low, it may end up being a once every 3 or 6 month task to regenerate it. And then it's only 1 reactor that's necessary for both of your nutrient exports. In my tank, I currently run about 50 grams of GFO in a filter sock, and I replace that every single week. So by swapping out GFO for the Blue Life resin in this reactor, it's cutting out one of my weekly maintenance tasks and turning it into a hopefully 3 to 6 month maintenance task with the regeneration media. As some of you who run GFO know, it can also be a little finicky and not always that reliable. Your phosphate can tend to swing a little bit even if you're constantly using the same amount of GFO and replacing it on a regular schedule. I'd be interested to see how effective this resin is as compared to GFO, but from what I've heard, it's extremely effective and it's looking quite promising in the way that it works. It's also not possible for it to leach phosphate back into the water, which is something I'm pretty excited about. I'm going to do a phosphate test on my tank now and to give you a before benchmark, and then we'll do a phosphate test again tomorrow and compare just how much phosphate this removes as compared to GFO in 24 hours. Alright, so this is the last time I'm going to have to get rid of the GFO out of my filter sock, which is currently a weekly maintenance task for me, which involves getting this, letting this drain, and trying not to then drip water on my floor, going over to the sink, and going blah. So that's 50 grams of GFO that I've been replacing weekly while I clean out this sock. Lovely maintenance task that we all love doing. Last time I ever have to do this, I'm not going to refill this sock with GFO. I'm just going to clean it and put it back in the sump. And yeah, we'll see how my phosphates are tomorrow. Alright, so I've set up the reactor. As you can see, the pump is right here. So it's going to pump water from the sump through this tube. I've got the valve installed just here, down the center column of the reactor, in the bottom, distributes it. As you can see, I've already filled it up a little bit, and then the water level is going to fill, and then it will go through this tube around here, and I've currently just got it hanging here, although I will plumb it into my my John Guest fittings built into my sump just there once I get it right. Now, right now I have the flow quite restrictive on this valve. Let's plug it in, and as we can see, the water level is very slowly rising, so that's a very slow flow rate, but I think that's fine for now. I'll just gradually increase that flow rate. You want to make sure that the flow rate's not too fast because we don't want any resin to be, it's only going to be a gentle bubbling of the resin. I think this is a tad too fast. So I'll just back that off a little bit. Yeah, you only want the resin to be very gently stirring. Now some bits of resin are floating, as you can see. It's because they've got air bubbles attached to them. Now what I'm going to be doing is, once this reactor's full, just checking for leaks, making sure that it's a perfect seal around the cap, and then the water level should go through this tube and it should start coming out here. There we go. And there's the flow rate out of my reactor. I also want to mention that built into the lid of this reactor is a non-return valve. So if the power is ever cut and the back pressure starts driving air back up the return of the reactor, whilst the resin will be sucked up the tube, maybe halfway or even all the way, it won't go beyond the lid due to that non-return valve. Also, with this reactor, it's a little counterintuitive. The higher the flow, the less effective the media. The lower the flow, the more contact time with your tank water, and the more the resin will have the ability to pull, whether it's phosphate or nitrate, out of your water. So just keep that in mind, that lower flow is more effective and higher flow is less effective for the rate of nutrient removal from your water. Here I got a close-up of the gentle stirring and bubbling of the resin. This is the type of flow that you want going through this reactor, so it's just barely moving and just not clumping together. So here's my Hana phosphorus checker. I tested yesterday, just before I installed the resin reactor, and it came up at 0.06 ppm after the conversion. As you can see there, it was reading 11 parts per billion phosphorus, which when converted to phosphate is 0.03 parts per million. So that's halved my phosphate in 24 hours from 0.06 to 0.03, which I think is a pretty good result and about bang on where I actually want my phosphates to be.